And then the streaming. Thank you for noticing that, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I just noticed that I hadn't had to knock away those dialogue boxes, so that was the reason.
There we go. Okay, we're ready to go now.
Okay, just for the record, called the meeting to order at 7:30. There were no conflicts of interest and no changes. A motion was made to approve the agenda as submitted by Councilmember Foe, seconded by Councilmember Smith. And we are now at the stage of discussing the motion. Is there any discussion of the motion? Are there any public comments on the motion? Hearing none and seeing no non-council microphones unmuted, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Calon.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. The next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments this evening?
Mute
Miss Katz has her hand up.
Thank you. Ms. Katz, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson. So obviously, this is something that you all have been working on behind the scenes, as you all are apt to do, which is a good thing. And so it's the first that I'm seeing about it, but I've just had some preliminary thoughts about the opportunity that this presents. And I don't know if now is the appropriate time to share those thoughts. I know we're at the very early stages of this. But one thought that some of the thoughts that I would just wanted to throw out there for the council to think about, as obviously you've put some thought into this already to get to this point, but I just wanted to express my thoughts about planning for an even greater impact of climate change in the future, and that this opportunity, although I believe it's a 6.63 acre parcel of land, and at this point the letter is proposing that if the town were to get this property, they would create 2.25 acres of impervious surface with you've talked to an engineer, etc. I just want to put in your ears and your minds the thought of what about even a greater amount of land, and somehow reaching out to some other expertise in addition to the engineering expertise you've reached out to, with regards to how much would that impact the bigger picture, with even greater, potentially greater climate change coming. And also the thought of, instead of holding water, pollinator gardens, things like that, but actually to reestablish some wetlands in this area would be an opportunity for that. I'm not an expert in this area, but I just wanted to encourage the council and the mayor and the staff to maybe seek some expertise in that area, not just purely engineering expertise, but some environmental expertise on what might have an even greater impact on the bigger picture of stormwater management. Would be potentially creating wetlands, which also clean the water and replenish our water table, which helps all of the wildlife in this area, because just holding the water and sending it downstream is a part of the answer, I understand, but I also think that there is, I've heard that there is a real challenge with our water table not replenishing, and that really is a part of the entire cyclic system of keeping us out of kind of being a heat island and allowing some of our larger overstory trees to survive over time, as well as having this piece of land even be part of a green corridor for some of the wildlife. And I think the news of the bears recently is probably pretty good to bring up in this respect, how we do have that's going to continue as well, as wildlife does need a place to go and a way to get from one place to another to maintain their diversity and their health. And so it's another thing to think about. And, my vision, I just saw this larger wetland area with boardwalks where it is accessible. It is an asset to the community as well. I think that the building that's on the property is something that the town council and y'all have talked about is in the letter. It talks about what that property could, or what the building could be used for. And certainly the most sustainable building is the building that's already built. It requires the least amount of energy and creates the smallest carbon footprint if it's already built. But it's a large building. And I'm just wondering, just having a different vision for that land over time, because once again, we have very little land to plan with here. And this would be a huge, huge opportunity, as you all obviously believe in as well, because you have pursued this. I think I got out most of my thoughts there, and I appreciate the opportunity to say that. I'm sure I'll have another opportunity to stress some of those thoughts and maybe think through them a bit more in the future. At least I certainly hope so, as you all always provide good opportunities for public input. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. What we have this evening later on the agenda is an initial vision of what we can do. It can, of course, be adjusted in the future, but that's our initial vision. And you raised a lot of interesting points. So we will discuss those under legislative action item number 1. And I will be seeking commentary as we discuss each item on the legislative action item list. So feel confident that you will have future input this evening and in the future as the ideas develop. Ms. Kelly, your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Hi there. It's Mr. Kelly. Haha.
I would never have known that, though.
I know, right? Right. I haven't been to a hairdresser in a while. I would like to reinforce what Ms. Katz just said, in that using more of this for stormwater and less of this for any sort of building stuff is better, because once you build, you can't go back. And I think that there are other ways to find places to have meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But there's not so many other ways to find places to do stormwater management. Mrs. Kelly's question is, what do you think the schedule for this would be, and what would be the process?
The schedule for acquisition and and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, is this like 7 years?
I believe that the schedule for acquisition, we are thinking sort of in the 1, maybe 2 years.
Okay.
And then in terms of, well, if assuming I'm still mayor when all this happens, then it would be a high priority for me.
You're in a line there, Alan, and everybody's taking one step back.
So it would be a very high priority for me to remove the current impervious surface and expose bare dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we can do that relatively inexpensively without finding significant sources of new money.
That'd be great.
And then after that, the project is going to need money. The building is in need of significant rehab. And so assuming we want to rehab the building, as was suggested as being an environmentally and just a good direction to go, environmental and energy efficient way to do it. Timescale for that, I can't even say, but I would guess a long time. It's not going to be immediate. It's going to take years.
Does the building take up 2/3 of the land?
No, the building, there are two main buildings. One of them has a sort of side wing off of it. And one of them is a more or less a garage and storage space
Mhm.
where we imagine that public works vehicles and perhaps police vehicles could be stored. And then the other is mostly office space and training rooms right now. And so large open rooms and some offices.
Okay, well, I think it's a good idea to retain some of the existing building, even if you have to do some remodeling, but I'm thoroughly in the camp of using as much of the acreage to do the stormwater stuff as possible.
Mhm. I'll point out, just for the record, that in my conversations with people in the county, that there's a lot of interest in the county in having stormwater facilities in some of the parks that are closer to the Anacostia River. And so there are ideas for that and indeed some discussion of potential plans for that. So that's there.
Mhm.
And so wanted to get that out there. I've heard that both from County Councilmember Olson fairly recently, and can't remember exactly what his position was. He was a director in the stormwater management section of the county government, and that was his idea for countywide addressing stormwater issues, was to have these dual use facilities.
Okay, well, that's great, but my point is, once you build something, then there is no more.
Right. I think at this time, we don't have plans to add anything, any impervious surface or new buildings to the site.
Well, I'm not saying
So-
that. I mean, I would be all for demolishing the whole thing and taking all 6 acres and using it as some sort of stormwater management project and not using anything for any other use. I
Mhm.
think, I
Okay.
mean, it's not gonna get any better. It's not gonna get
Yeah.
any.
That is probably true, unless we see some sort of widespread
Right.
effort upstream of us to
Right,
sequester
right.
stormwater on
Exactly.
people's individual
Exactly.
properties.
Exactly. That's why I think it's a noble effort to do this.
Mhm.
We should, we should try to do it as best as we can. And Kate says, what is it planned for town hall public works? What does that mean?
Well, they're gonna,
Just say it. They
I
can hear you.
understand that there's part of this is to either add to or replace some of the meeting facilities and public works facilities. And so what would be the plan for the current buildings for that?
We don't have any firm plans on that. There are a lot of options, including transferring them to some other owner. Lots of choices.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. I've weighed in with my opinion and I thank you for listening.
Of course. Thank you for letting us know.
Turn you to your regularly scheduled programming.
Mr. I presume Barron, please speak.
Hey, thanks, Mayor Thompson. I'm really excited about the project and particularly Laura's suggestion of a bear sanctuary, but I was just curious if it's better to hold off on comments now until we hear kind of your presentation, or if you want kind of initial thoughts from the public now.
I think that, everything I've heard this evening is sort of tied up under legislative action item number 1. And so I don't know if you've read any drafts of that, but if you haven't considered it, then please, if you could wait until after that, I will definitely call for comment at that time.
Okay, I'll just hold off until later then.
Okay, thanks. Mr. and Mrs. Kelly, your hand is still up, but I presume that's just because it doesn't go down by itself. Okay, very good. Okay, are there additional public comments before we get to the legislative action items? Okay, let's move along on the agenda then. Legislative action item number 1. Motion to adopt resolution 2023-R-13, adopting a vision for and declaring intent to acquire former U.S. Army Reserve property located at 61 6601 Baltimore Avenue, Riverdale Park, Maryland. May I please have it, such a motion?
So
So
moved.
moved. Withdrawn.
I'll give the motion to Councilmember Foe and the second to Councilmember Lingua. Is that a reasonable guess as to who said what when?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay, well, that's where I am. You can appeal the question to the chair should you choose to. We have a motion and a second, so the motion is on the floor. Is there a staff discussion of the contents of 2023-R-13?
Mr. Chelton, can you put the resolution up on the screen, please? So the resolution that you have in front of you, I believe, captures the discussions that the mayor and council have had. The mayor had an opportunity to review this in advance as well. This is presented as a draft, and I think it's consistent with the discussions in that it hits on the themes of stormwater management, sustainability, and community and government use of the property. Again, this is a preliminary vision. I think the mayor's point of that this may evolve over time, but this gives the town something to work with and begin the process of political outreach and support for having the property conveyed to the town.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Members of the council, any discussion of the language and the goals in this document? Councilmember Foe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The excitement is palpable. The tension, you can already feel it in participation, in discussion. This is exciting. And I have a tendency to get out and want to lead and yell and scream and do all of these things. And I think we need to tap the brakes on that a little bit because the first thing that we need to be able to do is acquire this land. And that is a daunting process that figures to have significant competition, I would assume. Simultaneously, I do believe in a process where we can ultimately change that space based upon what we do in dialogue about here. Let's say we don't win the land. I believe that we can make an impact where potentially we remove some of that impermeable surface that exists there, regardless of what the space is going to be utilized for or by whom. So I believe that we have within our grasps the ability to change this space and impact stormwater management in this town. And I get excited about that. Secondly, I think when I heard Ms. Kelly mention what to do with the existing town hall if we were to get it, again, thinking way further out ahead of ourselves. I love the idea of a community school like Riverdale Elementary being able to expand its footprint, being able to accommodate more of its teachers and parking lots, potentially utilizing our town hall space as a language development center, and potentially an expansion of Riverdale Park's own staff to include more language resources in that facility. I believe the ideas that we can put on the table on behalf of our community will impact this dialogue dramatically. I believe this is a high yield topic that will help us bring together partners across many municipalities. And I believe that it can be a swing point in this town's history as we look at the increasing threat of stormwater management. I am so excited to support this. I am so excited to help bring our community into this. And the early meetings that we have had on this show you where your thought processes are, Mr. Mayor, where our staff under town leadership is. And I am excited to see what a unified council with this ability is capable of achieving in outreach and community engagement. I've talked too long. I'm excited to hear what the other council members have to say.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Smith, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am similarly excited about this project, or potential for this project. As I've talked about extensively, in this forum and others as well, climate change is already here. We see the effects in our community frequently, every day. In fact, everything we do as a town, we have to consider at this point the impacts of the changing climate. The folks that live in the neighborhood just south of this parcel can definitely testify to that. An area where we have had at least three, I think 3 is the number, generational floods in the last 10 years or so. And we're not talking about floods, people's basements, their sump pumps breaking or whatever. Like going into people's living rooms. In fact, in Riverdale Neighborhood Park there, in one of the floods, a deer drowned in a park, not in Wells Run, in the park proper where there's normally grass, due to our flooding problems, and the way that Wells Run moves so much of the stormwater, not just in our town, but upstream to the Anacostia, and how our infrastructure is not built to handle that volume of water. We've talked a lot about what it would require to prepare our town for these effects of climate change and the increase in volume of stormwater we're surely going to encounter. And while we haven't, I don't think, put any hard numbers to it, anyone I've talked to or had a conversation with about this thinks, or has agreed that we are talking in the hundreds of millions, if not billions, to create a project that would meaningfully impact stormwater drainage in our town. We obviously don't have those kind of resources as a town, but this project, the potential for this project, we're not going to get something like this again. This is a real opportunity to meaningfully affect people's lives in this town, to prepare our town for climate change, with a parcel of land that we can create facilities to retain and absorb that stormwater at a scale that we really don't have any other options or potential for options in the town to do on our own without some significant infusion of resources. So I'm incredibly excited about this. I support it wholeheartedly. I know that our wonderful town staff are going to do a great job in advocating for our residents and our town, as we will as a council. And this is really exciting. Like, people who have spent, 6 figures on storm recovery in their houses because they live in a place that 15 or 20 years ago was not a floodplain, but now is. This is something we can do to meaningfully and consequentially affect their lives. And I'm super excited, if I did not say that already. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Much appreciated. Councilmember Inyang, you are next. Please speak.
I appreciate the time. I echo the comments of my colleagues on this. I think everyone is well aware that this is a significant moment and opportunity. There aren't a lot of large parcels in our town that are available that give us an opportunity to really think long-term about what it can do to positively impact our community. I know a lot has been talked about the sustainability and the stormwater management. I think it's appropriate to sort of lead with that. I think that is like the greatest opportunity to positively impact the lives of residents here. And I think it's appropriate, reading through this vision, that is sort of we lead with that. That is the number one emphasis for all the reasons that were stated above or before. That said, I don't want to necessarily minimize some of the other opportunities that are in this vision, because I do think that they speak to another opportunity. We live in a our seat of government where services are as was always surprising to me when I first joined this community 6 years ago of how hard it was to find. It was sort of tucked away in a dead end street, and not on a main road. And you look at that as like some of our neighbors, right, where College Park, their city hall is right on Route 1. And I think what that affords you is the ability to better connect and meet people where they are in a place that's convenient. And so the opportunity to literally take the work of our faculty, our staff, and the government out of the unknown corner and put it sort of front and center, and make this more than just a place where you go for permits and one-off things that that aren't necessarily enjoyable or convenient, but make it a place where as a community we can bring folks together is, I think, a vision that I think is also really compelling. And not only for what that would do for how it frees up the rest of the town, the existing sort of footprint of the government, for whatever number of ideas, whether it's the elementary school or someone else. I think that could be, its own exciting conversation in and of itself. But I do think that ability to sort of bring the focal point, into Ward 4, I think is definitely something that I'd be remiss if we don't necessarily mention it, even though I completely agree that stormwater management should be the focal point. And then I guess the last thing, just to be clear, is I think Councilmember Foe talked about this, is I really see this as a vision, as a way to shape a narrative and a conversation about what this space can be. It may read, and if it does, we apologize. And I think it might be worthwhile, Mr. Mayor, at some point, whether it's you or Town Manager Stishon, to sort of walk through what this process is. By no means is it our land, right? I think it may be in our next point when we talk about how we're going to send this letter to all these people, it may be a little clearer in terms of the multiple steps and the high wire act that will be required for this to sort of land in our control. But I do think that at the very least, I sort of see this as, when we talk about the space, it should be not a question of what do we do with the Formy Armor Reserve location and facility, but rather does someone want to do something different than what Riverdale Park has already envisioned? And let the conversation be, well, we have a vision for what it is, and do you want to do something different than that vision, as opposed to a blank slate? Because the more this becomes real and people can see the art of the possible, the more likely it is that even if we are not successful for whatever reason, that we can coalesce a coalition of folks to be able to say that, well, these are the core things that must happen in that facility. And I hope that stormwater management is a reality regardless of who the ultimate owner is. But I do think that I appreciate the vision that was put together for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Inyang. Councilmember Lingua, your hand is up to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First off, I want to thank staff for all the work they've put into getting us with this short notice. We'll be able to be positioned to move forward tonight. This has been a parcel of land in town that has been long in the waiting to have this opportunity to put the municipality forward in acquiring. And it's been stated for the actions of members of the county council and county and public school system inspecting the property and looking at the property for its consideration of its being acquired for uses that they would like to see. That is in competition to the vision that the town has for what initially the vision that we have, that what we would like to see there. And think it is imperative for the municipality to make that desire known, not only by members of the council, but also members of this community. What the acquisition of this 6-acre parcel could do to help transform the town in terms of the municipal services that the town would be able to provide to the community, both in the way of general government, both in the way of public works and public projects, by way of community development, and by way of public safety. There is a lot that in turn that the town can offer in return to the county and to the public school system. And I think the town should be ready and willing to be able to sit down with all parties and be competitive in our vision for what we would like to see here, and how this is going, how the town's vision for what can occur on this over 6-acre parcel would be for the betterment of everybody in the community and in the surrounding communities as well. And this is something that we're going to need to stay on top on from this day forward until a decision is made as to where that property will go. And should the municipality prove successful, then the work will be on to be able to realize that vision. And I hope that we have many hands to be able to help the municipality achieve that vision.
Does that conclude your remarks, Councilmember Berlinguer?
I believe I have stopped talking, Mr. Mayor, so yes, it does.
Okay, just making sure that you weren't carefully composing your next statement in your before saying it. Okay, I have some thoughts, but I'm going to open it up for a public comment on this exact motion, adopting a vision for and declaring intent to acquire the property. So are there public comments or questions on this? Mr. Barron, please speak.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to talk. I took a second to find the mute button. Again, I just want to echo my excitement. I think I reached out to Richard and John a couple months ago. Every time I walk by this property, I'm kind of curious what's happening. The giant surface lots that you can see from the aerial images are definitely not helping the community. So I'm excited to hear that stormwater management is one of kind of the ideas of the vision for the town. Also thought the comments about potentially repurposing the buildings for community purposes is great. And Councilmember Foe's suggestion of maybe shuffling some of the various uses around from different buildings to better achieve some of our kind of shared visions for the community are awesome. And I also liked Councilmember Nyang's comments about just this establishing the vision and having kind of a clear vision for people to react to and kind of negotiate from is excellent. I did want to just take the opportunity just to plug one thing, which is there has been some discussion in the past about at the county level about potentially including some pedestrian connections through this property to connect to Wells Parkway, which would provide a really straight shot for the members of the community to reach kind of the library in Hyattsville off of Delphi Road, as well as the new multi-generational community center that's being built there. So again, I know this is very early, but I definitely hope that that's included in whatever vision comes out of this. And I think that's very complementary to stormwater management, some of the other things that have been discussed. And then just a totally random thought that I wanted to share is just that the county has also been kind of punting on the new fire station that's supposed to be consolidated at the corner of, I think potentially East-West Highway in Kenilworth. And I don't think there's ever been any funds actually allocated for building that. But if there's any way, I think to Councilmember Poe's suggestion about shuffling public buildings around to accommodate that, if that fits into this vision at all, that might be something else just to keep in mind, as I think that would be very in line with a public use for this project or another site, if this is used for town meetings or other purposes. But anyway, fully support the resolution. Really appreciate you all kind of driving this forward. I think it's going to be a great, potentially great benefit to the town if we're able to acquire the property. Thanks again.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Barron. Are there additional public comments or questions on this motion or the text of the resolution itself? Okay, the comments that I will make are that visions are sort of deliberately a little bit vague. And so the introductory text and the open letter that we'll be discussing shortly, open letters, I think the text will vary from letter to letter, are more specific and have the 2.5 acres and exactly what the intent is. This touches at a high level on all the points. So it says that we have a vision of turning unused property into something that contributes, currently unused, to something that contributes to the community. And the big three that we see, big contributions, are stormwater management. And I remember sitting in Franklin's talking to an engineer about stormwater management many years ago and learning that stormwater management had the two prongs of water quality and water quantity. And so those words appear in the details elsewhere, but in this vision, just stormwater management, because the exact details of what we're going to do still to be determined. This is a vision and it will be adjusted in the future. Community use is a second of the positive issues that we see. And I think that at some level, that's an essential piece of it, as has been mentioned by many other people. This is an accessible location. It's pedestrian accessible. We expect to have hundreds to thousands more housing units coming online within the area that this facility can serve. And so community use is an essential future use in our vision, I believe. And last but not least, the town offices, with the increased density and population that we expect to come here, and that does mesh with our vision of sustainability, that we have development, we have concentrated people living where services are, where access to transit is, so that hopefully fewer people will be driving their cars and driving shorter distances if they are driving their cars. And so, so the fact that we have all of those additional people moving in means that town government will have to grow, and we are currently quite constrained on our current site. We attempted to go vertical many years ago for renovations, and we're told that the soil could not support it, current location. So we have to see what can be done in this location, but I think that relocating the town offices to this location eventually is a good idea, or a sizable fraction of them. So that's the vision, and I think it's a good one. I think it has the three legs of the vision, so we have a stable stool to sit on and to stand on. Is good to have, and I'm hoping that we can adopt it. Perhaps there could be some minor variations. I guess there's one other piece of it to answer one of the comments made by Ms. Katz earlier about establishing wetlands and aquifer recharge. That's an interesting idea that I hadn't heard before. But in this vision, we have a statement of creating green space, and I think that green space is going to be contributing to aquifer recharge. And I think just a reality of engineering is that at least part of this space is likely to be wetlands, period. Just because I can't imagine another way that we could make some of the stormwater features work. We can't have a baseball field or a playground immediately adjacent to Wells Run where it's going to be flooding, at least a few times a year probably, but without having some space for wetlands. And I think we may have learned that lesson at the dog park, that the wetlands will create themselves if we try to encroach on them too much. So those are my my comments on the legislation that is before us, and I look forward to hearing any additional council comments or public comments. Mr. Town Manager, I see that your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to share contents of an email that we received today from the engineer who's working on the renderings. Included in their concept, and speaking directly to what you were just mentioning, sir, they're also looking to incorporate a submerged gravel wetland, which would provide water quality for the redevelopment. And so that's going to be in the initial renderings that they're putting together.
And that we expect to receive at the end of this week. Is that correct?
Yes, we're still anticipating the renderings on Friday.
Okay, very good. Okay, any additional council or public comments on the motion to adopt resolution 2023-R-13? It's awfully quiet, so I'm going to do a roll call vote unless somebody pipes up quickly. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Kellon.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. That's fantastic. It's good to hear those numbers. Okay, let's move on to legislative action item number 2, motion to approve the draft open letter from the mayor and council to the Riverdale Park community and others. May I please have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Smith. If I'm wrong, somebody please speak up quickly. Okay, there is text. I'm going to take a moment to speak, if I might. There's text for different audiences in this this draft letter, and that includes residents, as you can see on the screen now, residents, visitors, business owners, and neighbors. And then you scroll a little bit further down to stakeholders. And I'm hoping that in this resolution that you will approve the text, but that it is a substantially similar to approval, and that I will be allowed to lightly adjust the wording as is needed for the different recipients. We might have a very different letter to our senators than we do to the residents, for instance. And so this is sort of general language, and I'm happy to receive feedback on the language that you see before you from members of the council or the public. With that, any comments?
I'm comfortable with that.
Ms. Katz, I'm gonna give the council a shot first, and then I'll recognize you.
I agree with the other council member.
Okay. Any additional council comments or discussion? Any language that you are concerned about in here? Anything that we are missing? Anything that needs to be added?
Mr. Mayor, I agree with the need to sort of be flexible with the letter as much as possible, if at all possible. especially for our elected officials that we're sending it to, if we could tie it to whether it's existing bills that may be in process or recent legislation that's been passed, sort of tying it to it or making it as closely like associating with it as I think we've done. Maybe that's a different version of it, but yeah, I think if those opportunities present themselves, I would sort of suggest doing that as well. And yeah, I think giving you discretion to sort of make those calls at the moment makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you. Any additional council comments? Okay, Ms. Katz, you've been patient. I appreciate that.
Not a problem at all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to offer something that's I'm sure thought of already, just the resident letter in particular, that I'm assuming that would also be available in Spanish. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh, definitely. This is going to be translated. We have enormous Spanish-speaking population, and of course, we want to have outreach to them as well. So the one change that that I would suggest, and this is based on Ms. Katz's earlier comments and some comments made by others, is simply to add at least 2.5 acres in front of the 2.5 acres in the places that that specific number appears. And, you know, we're not making a formal commitment to that. We're just saying that that's our intent. And if there's some engineering issue that means we are at 2.493 acres, then I assume that I will not be voted out of office for that, but never know.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just from our prior discussions and looking at the site, would you agree that it's more likely that whatever direction we go, assuming we get the property and all the other disclaimers, it would be more likely actually that we come in above 2.5 acres on impervious surface removed?
So yes, I would certainly, you know, not want to stop at 2.5. It's
that's just yeah.
There's a lot of asphalt there. So
yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Mr. Mayor,
please go ahead, Mr. Town Manager.
I was trying to raise my hand and I couldn't click fast enough. My apologies. So in saying 2.5, one thing that's unique about the property is in that 6.6, and I have not pulled the deed, so I'm not sure how the language is in the deed, but the entrance to the postal property is on this property. So there's going to be an easement there. So that 6.6 of usable space is going to be reduced by that access. And so with whatever number the engineers and the council eventually directs, we will be limited in that regard if we're successful. And as Councilmember Smith said, with all the caveats involved in that, there's just a northern piece of the property that would have to remain the entrance to the postal property.
I'm pulling it up on PG Atlas right now, just so I can see it.
And Mr. Shelton, can I share my screen? Thank you. So if you look where the cursor is here, it's our understanding, even with PG Atlas, how lines can be off slightly. It's our understanding that this is the property line here on the northern boundary. This is the entrance to the post office. Then you have this little buffer, and here's the entrance to the back parking lot.
Understood. Okay. Thank you for that that clarification, Mr. Town Manager. Any additional, I would actually say that the adjustment I just suggested of adding at least is within just my discretion and rewording as needed to reflect the intent of the council. And believe me, I'm happy to run these letters past you guys informally before they go out and receive input. If you guys want to copy edit, then I'm good with that. So are there any other needed adjustments to the language that was presented in the draft open letter?
Mr. Mayor, have we considered including, I know there's not a name for either the vision or what we're thinking. I think it's sort of referred to as like the town's vision for this property several times. It'd be great if we had something in particular to call it, so it can be referred to as shorthand. So maybe not, because I think there's a timing element for this letter, but I would definitely, if you think of something, definitely let us know. But I think being able to refer to our vision for this as something, I think will help again, give it some personality. And again, the quicker we can brand this as this is what it is going to be, please come up with a better idea to change it. Is I think that's the ideal that we're striving for. So I couldn't think of anything in particular that kind of clearly lets folks know what it is, even if it's rough. That might be a better start than just the town's vision 7 times.
Sure. No, that makes good sense. I don't think I'm going to be able to come up with a name for it in the next.
I'm struggling too.
few
And
minutes.
I want this. I can't.
So let's work on that. We'll be meeting again in just a few weeks, and so we can all think on it in that time. And as Councilmember Inyang said, there is a timing component that we want to get these letters in front of people's eyeballs as fast as we can.
Mr. Mayor, if it's necessary, I do know in Ward 1 of a talented and handsome public relations expert that could contribute to an effort of brainstorming a name for the project.
And
Very good.
Emphasis on handsome.
Okay, well, I'll make my guess as to who that might be, but your offer is very much appreciated. Mr. Town Manager, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add that may assist the handsome person in that one email that we had sent out to you all. I think there's a list of 4 or 5 different names that staff came up with. So that may be a starting point for the council to review and then go from there.
Very good, thank you. Okay, any additional comments on this motion to approve the, I have to get the agenda up, approve the draft open letter?
Mr. Chelton.
Mr. Mayor, briefly.
I couldn't, there's 2 people talking over each other. Can someone please?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Briefly on that last tangent that we've been discussing.
Certainly.
My thought is until time that we come up with another way of referring to it, for now, just refer to it as 6602 Baltimore Avenue.
$6601, but sure.
6601. Yeah, just refer to it to the address that it is right now.
Okay. Distinct possibility. I will see if we can make it sound good in the letters. So. Okay, if there are no other comments, I will go to a vote on the motion to approve the draft letter. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia,
Aye.
and Councilmember Kellogg.
Aye.
Thank you. I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. That brings us to legislative action item number 3. Motion to authorize Mayor Thompson, that would be me, to send a letter to the following list of recipients. May I please have such a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Inyang, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody we're missing on this list?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Do we think, is it the sense of the council that it might be beneficial to include some local media outlets as well in this list? And if the answer is no, that's fine. It was just a thought that just came to me.
I think that we can arrange to do that. I was thinking of some of the very hyper local print media, online print media.
Yeah, I mean, I would love the Post to cover it too, but yeah, you know, of course that's a longer shot, but the, you know, the greater Washingtons, the
Hyattsville Wire.
Hyattsville Wire, the Route 1 online publication, the award-winning Town Crier for sure. But those types of outlets, yeah.
Okay. Ms. Katz?
Not well versed in the protocols and all this, but I was wondering, what about the Postal Service? Are they a stakeholder?
That's an interesting question.
Because of their road? Just,
Well, I think that as the town manager said, we're going to be required to allow them continued access on that an easement for them to continue using that road. I think a courtesy letter to the local postmaster would be acceptable thing to do. Mr. Listician, do you have a thought on that?
I do, sir. I would recommend that the council grant you broad authority to send letters after more strategic discussions about who may be competitors in the process to acquire the property, as well as not just building broad support, but also looking to hold any opposition at bay. And so I think the council granting you significant leeway to be able to react with a changing dynamic, because I do think we're going to be entering a changing dynamic as this moves forward. It's not a static situation. Here's what we're doing today. Here's what we're doing tomorrow. It's not going to be linear. And so I think having the ability to pivot, if you will, is something that would be beneficial to the town.
Okay, so perhaps a friendly amendment to the effect of a motion to authorize Mayor Thompson to send a letter to the following list and other entities or persons as the mayor finds in his discretion would be useful for the successful acquisition of the property. Is that, would the maker and seconder accept that as a friendly amendment?
That's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
Okay. Council is, rest of the council is okay with that? Silence will be interpreted as a yes. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
please go ahead.
My one question was regarding sending a letter to superintendent of the Prince George's County School System.
We could do that. From what I have heard before, they were not interested in this property because of its position in the floodplain. But I would like to keep that one as a discretionary. Let me think on it for a little while.
Okay.
And I can discuss some of my concerns with you after I have a little while to think about it.
Okay.
Councilmember Foe.
I just had a similar thought, and your reaction leads me to believe that maybe we should communicate offline. I do believe it, engaging our school community is also a component to a successful application, and I believe that we should talk about potentially engaging Prince George's County Public Schools and Riverdale Elementary in dialogues as part of a holistic viewpoint of how potentially this could impact our community.
Okay. Like I said, let me think about that for a little while, but I can see that there could be some advantages to that process.
Mr. Mayor,
Please go ahead, Councilmember Yang.
to be clear, this is to send a letter, and it's not, you're not beholden to the draft letter from the previous motion.
That's correct. The previous motion is a draft letter, and I have discretion as to the language, but a lot of the language that's in the draft letter will make it in one form or another into the letters I send to these individuals.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a great idea. I think we talked about in theory the idea of the letter needing to be updated and changed depending on who we talk to. I think as this list in sort of this motion now increases, that will be even more important. As you know, the town manager, Lestitian mentioned what the messaging is for potential competitors versus people who are building a coalition to support, and being mindful about when that makes sense to send, as well as what the content of it is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. Any additional comments or questions? Okay, I'll move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Kellogg.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. That brings us to new business. Are there any items of new business?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I'd like to bring, I know we talked last session about the idea of, or maybe that was 2 sessions ago with all the special legislative meetings that have happened, the idea around bike safety and opportunities for event programming around sort of engaging town residents in bike safety programming. I sent a note to town staff as well, talking about some of the opportunities of the WABA and some classes that they have and some resources that I think potentially could allow the town to have a class or 2 at no cost. At least in the short term, there's some memorial funds available. So I'd love to add that to new business to sort of further explore the possibility and some of the challenges potentially of having sort of bike safety programming within the town.
Okay. What time scale were you so is the idea just to have a discussion about whether we want to have bike safety event and partner with Washington Area Biking Alliance, WABA, or did you want to cover other issues besides that? Did you want to plan something much more specific?
Yeah, so I think there is an opportunity for to get fit into a fall schedule. I think a late August, early September, October time frame for a class or two.
Okay.
And so I think part of it would be one, the feasibility of it, and then two, if there are particular dates that might make sense. And then we can, and then obviously we'd love to iron out more details. I think there would still be issues around permitting, location for something like this. So there are definitely some details that would need to be ironed out. But that would
Okay.
be
Do we want to request that staff look into that question over the next few weeks and come back to us in the July meeting? Would that be
that would be appreciated.
okay? Mr. Town Manager, is that a possibility?
Yes,
the
sir.
time?
I would recommend just putting it on the July 10th as a work session item. And we would, in the interim, do a little bit of background work and be able to present some thoughts to the council.
Okay.
That's good. Thank
Okay.
you.
Very good. Any other items of new business? Councilmember Foe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had mentioned in a previous closed session, I believe, that I would love to see if we could tour the site at 6601. I just wondered if that was potentially a possibility. I believe that could be positive media if we were able to have a whole council potentially attend, show our interest in the space, utilize photographs on the website and in our town distributions. I feel like that it's a good starting point where this meeting is us getting the opportunity to look at that and continue to collaborate on this shared vision.
Mr. Town Manager, do you think that's a possibility?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just to recap, the mayor and I had toured the property, and so I believe, council member, you're referring to getting the rest of the council in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And so I can make contact again with the folks at the Army who are responsible for the facility maintenance, and we can arrange a tour, certainly. And
I think maybe we could use that for social media posts, just to state our intent, change how we have not change how we're communicating, but just a little bit different output coming from the town about a collaborative effort of the town and the community.
Yes, and so the short answer is yes, we can get a tour coordinated, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'll let you know that it's not particularly photogenic in there.
Listen, I know, but having 6 of us and a mayor, I think that is a good image.
Sure. Agreed. Agreed.
That I don't think anybody else is doing right now. I think it's imperative that we are attempting to publicize our points here.
Mm-hmm. And I agree that the visuals are good. It's one of the reasons we're looking for the rendering of the
stark back concrete. Like, we got to do something about that. Yeah, that when you show those overhead pictures, it's astonishing that that's unutilized space for 2 years. We should, I think there's an element where we can be passionate and not necessarily angry, but we can engage in look at our struggles and look what we've communicated so deftly, I believe. I mean, we have legislative sessions that indicate the length and dialogue that we've had with the county on our stormwater management issues. And I think this is just the next incantation of that.
Definitely agree. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the suggestion. And Mr. Town Manager, staff will look into this, correct?
Yes, and we'll reach out to the council to get some dates. It's my understanding that the representatives from the Army will be rather flexible with us.
Okay, very good. Any additional items of new business?
Mr. Mayor, in terms of the go ahead. You can go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Callan, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an audience with my Ward 6
some of my Ward 6 people here.
Mhm.
They complained to me that 54th Avenue from River of Life, the church, River of Life to Spring Street to Jefferson.
Mhm.
They said the drivers are speeding there too much. So they asked if we can make a speed bump over there so that they can lessen their speed. So I don't know if you can put this before the town manager and his staffs and my council members. Yeah, they
Okay.
discussed that to me. The
So
car-
there's an established process that the council has council many years ago established for checking out, for doing traffic studies and so on. Councilmember Inyang can tell you about this, and I believe that Councilmember Lingua can also tell you about some of this down in Ward 3. And we can certainly start that process to collect the data to see if the speeding qualifies for our standards, and I suspect that it will, given what I've seen myself over there. So, but we do have a process in place for that. Can Mr. Town Manager, can staff start that process for 54th?
Yes, Director Lewis, are you on the call?
Yes, sir. Yes, I can start that process probably early next week
Very good.
to put out the radar sign to collect
Yep.
traffic and speed data over a 2-week period.
Okay,
Now,
fantastic.
we
Thank
do
you.
have, if I may interject, we do have a lot going on there right now. We have street lights that are being installed and a little further south, the sidewalk. So we'll have to find a convenient place to put the radar sign. And if not next week, maybe the week after.
Okay, understood. We want to collect data that's accurate.
Sure. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Because,
if I may.
Mr. Mayor, a lot of accident is happening in this area. Damaging cars, people are damaging themselves with the speed. So
I'm
I'm thinking that if we have a speed bump there, that will lessen some of this accident. So, the street light is going on. I'm seeing everything. The street light, they are on there right now. But this speed bump is very important.
I understand, and we will try to get it done as quickly as we can, but there is a process that was established by previous council, still binding on us, and we need to follow that process.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Additional items of new business.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
Regarding the previous matter, I believe according to the policy that a petition needs to be submitted for a request to do a speed audit by the residents of that street. Are we foregoing that part of the policy?
I believe that we can collect data in advance, but yes, we will need the petition before we can move forward with the speed bump process beyond that.
So you're saying that a petition does need to come before?
Before we, I believe, I mean, certainly we've collected speed data and put up the sign in places that we were not considering speed bumps. And so we can do a similar data collection to determine the extent of the problem there. And that can be used should a petition arrive with the appropriate signatures on it.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I would like to see something along the southern part of Taylor Road then. If we're going that avenue.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilmember Kellum.
before I forgot, I have another report from the BP gas station and the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
These people, they talk to me that they are getting a problem with some people who are coming there. When they're drunk, they lie down on the floor. They are disturbing people, begging money. They said they have tried to remove them there, but there is no way. So I said, well, I will put this matter before my mayor so that he and the town manager can find a solution to this. So this is the one that I was about to forget it. So this is another complaint that they told me. Thank you.
Okay. So going back to Councilmember Lingua's request, Ms. Lewis, Director Lewis, can we possibly collect some data on the southern end of Taylor Road as well?
Great.
Just
In fact, I've made that note, sir.
okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And I believe that was on our list anyway, Mr. Mayor, from the previous conversation at a different council meeting about automated enforcement. And we were going to get some speeds in that area. So we'll report this stuff back to the mayor and council as soon as we have the numbers.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Town Manager, can you convey to, do we have representatives from the police department? I don't see any. Can you please convey to the police department to look out for public drunkenness and similar activities going on in the area brought up by Mr. Kellon?
Yes, Councilmember Callan had previously reported this to staff. I believe it was either yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And the police chief is aware of the complaint, and we'll take appropriate action.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
just maybe it's an order of new business, maybe it's not. I think the sort of the follow-up from post letters, I believe the letters may even point us to the website for more information. Is there a sort of a phase 2 of the outreach that will point folks to the website? And is there plans for that, the next level of work on the website to specifically talk about this new soon to be branded vision that the town has?
So the question, as I understand it, is will we be putting the any materials about this project on the website? And I think the quick answer to that is yes. We'll have to wait for Director Barnes to get back from her vacation, but that will happen fairly quickly. And then we'll be pointing people to those in the letters. I think that depends on the timing of the website improvements and the letters, but we can definitely put an intent to add that material to the website into the letter. And I think that works.
Thank you.
Any additional items of new business? Any items of unfinished business? Out of an abundance of caution, given that this is a special legislative and not a regular meeting, I'm going to take a little time to give the report about our previous closed meeting. This should be a pretty quick report, and I'll do it again at the July meeting just to be sure we tick the box. So we had a closed meeting on the 14th of June last week, starting at 8:45 p.m. on Zoom. The reason was to discuss the authority for having a closed session was General Provisions Article 3-305B3 to consider the acquisition of real property for a public purpose and matters directly related thereto. I think from the context of this meeting, you know what was discussed. We were discussing on the form, I wrote strategy to acquire a particular piece of real property. Of course, we now know that that property is the Army Reserve Center 6601. Persons attending the closed session were myself, Director Barnes, Director Shelton, Councilmember Inyang, Town Manager Listician, Councilmember Foe, Councilmember Lingua, Councilmember Kellon, Councilmember Smith, Director Lewis, and Director of Finance, Paul Smith. And the topic actually discussed was the strategy to acquire a particular piece of real property, actions taken, directions were given to staff to develop documents supporting the identified strategy and release them at the discretion of the mayor. And 2, allow the mayor to discuss all that happened at the meeting with Councilmember Mejia, should that happen. Councilmember Mejia has been brought up to date at this time, I believe. And the closed session adjourned at 9:38 p.m. And those who voted to close were Councilmember Smith, Faux, Lingua, Inyang, and Kellon. And that concludes my report of the closed meeting. Are there any additional items of unfinished business? May I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Faux. I don't know who made the second. Does somebody want to put their hand up and say that they
Inyang.
took it? Inyang, okay. Second to adjourn by Councilmember Inyang. Neither discussed nor debated. So we'll do a roll call vote immediately. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Faux.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Inyang.
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Kellon.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 6-0. We are adjourned at 8:53 p.m. Thank you all very much for a very energetic meeting. Thank you so much. Good night.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.